So maybe we should start. People will probably be joining throughout the first minutes or so. I can start by presenting myself. My name is Maria Lennartsson. I work as a research and development coordinator at the City of Stockholm in one of the urban projects. And I'm also a work package leader in the Anchor project. And I would like to start with presenting a bit about the Anchor project before we go into the presentation of today. This is the 6th Anchor lunch talk that we've had. If you're interested in listening into the other ones, they are available on our website. Anchor is a project to fuel the transition toward water-wise neighborhoods, and it's done through collecting information from 5 different pilot projects throughout Europe, in Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, and Sweden. Projects that are all using source separation technology to develop the water sector, and also with the follower cities to develop new pilots. And how are we doing it? We're mapping impacts from the decentralized water systems, trying to understand the benefits and the drivers behind it. And we're also trying to engage closely with stakeholders, and this is one of the ways we're doing it through our lunch talks. By the end of the project, we hope that we will be delivering practical tools and transition knowledge that would be available on a large scale from the project. We are 8 partners in the project from the different countries participating, both from academia, municipalities, and also utilities working together in this project. And the agenda for today is Agents of Change. We have Jan Starke and Noor van der Doren from one of our partners, sorry, now I lost it. You have to present yourself.
KWR.
KWR, yes, that's right. They have done a study on agents of change. They will describe what agents of change are, and then they've also going to discuss with one of the agents of change, Peter de Smet from Ghent from Ghent. Towards the end, we will also have time for questions and reflections. So please write your comments or questions in the chat, and we will try to summarize it towards the end. I would also like to say that we are recording this session so that it will be available for other people that are not participating at the moment. So over to you, Jan and Noor.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Noor van Doren. I work at KWR as a researcher on the role of individuals and organizations in transitions. And together with my colleague Jan Starke, we are working on work package 3 in Anchor, specifically on the governance analysis. And we will today present a little bit about the theoretical framework we have used in our research, but we will also show the initial results for the analysis of the Nieuwe Dokken in Ghent. So I will start with the theoretical framework, and Jan will then share more about the preliminary results. So basically the start for this research was that we see that urban water systems face quantity and quality challenges related to water, and we see a need for a more circular approach to urban water management to address these challenges. And especially circular decentralized water management offers potential solutions for these challenges. However, we also see that current research mainly focuses on technology, while governance issues of these initiatives remain quite unclear. So in our research, we try to focus mostly on those governance issues and also look at the role of individuals in addressing them. And we do this by focusing on the pioneering circular urban water management initiatives that we look at in Anchor, so the 5 cases that Maria mentioned. And we try to see how their transformative ambition is maintained throughout the initiatives. Specifically, we do this by looking at the roles that different key actors play in this process. So which actions do they take and also in which phase of the process. And theoretically, we combine the small wins framework, specifically the propelling mechanisms, with an agents of change framework looking at different actor roles. And I will explain a bit more about these 2 frameworks later, because I can imagine for some of you, these are quite new. And we use an abductive approach to do this research, which means that first we conceptualize the combination of these 2 frameworks through the knowledge we already had and the literature that we found. And right now we are continuously and iteratively redefining this conceptualization and this framework through in-depth interviews with the different case studies. So right now we have done all the interviews for the case of Ghent, and we are working on the other cases. And our main findings right now are that specific actor role combinations drive key mechanisms at different phases, which ensures long-term impact. But Jan will tell you a bit more about what that exactly means in the end of this presentation. So starting out with small wins, it might be a good point to start explaining what even a small win is. So small wins are initiatives that show some transformative potential, and they are often defined by 4 characteristics, which means that they have concrete outcomes, which can be seen through visible results and not just promises and ideas only. They have in-depth changes, so that means that they really introduce radical new practices and not just more of the same or quick wins. They are of moderate importance, which may sound a bit strange, but it basically means that they are at a micro or a local level, allowing them to actually introduce these radical new practices, which can be quite difficult to do immediately on a larger scale. And they are, after all, called small wins. So they do need some kind of positive judgment around them, which can often be seen as an improvement or a step forward in a transition, and is related to a shared ambition. Based on this, we concluded that the 5 cases in Anchor can be considered small wins, because they do show the transformative potential. However, and they are seeds of transformative change, so it means that they have the potential to grow and realize even more change. However, by growing, and I will mention later what I mean by growing, they also risk losing their radicality and novelty over time. So in our research, we really try to focus on how they do maintain that ambition. So in the small wins framework, there are 8 propelling mechanisms that are identified that help in developing 3 transition pathways, so to say. And these pathways are spreading, broadening, and deepening. And it basically means that the initiative can multiply, but it also can become bigger, or it can gain more deep and radical knowledge on the initiative. And this is achieved by the several mechanisms. So for example, partnering means that the initiative partners with like-minded organizations or individuals to help them grow and help them maybe spread or broaden or deepen. And learning by doing means that the initiative can really learn through experimentation, that they have room to experiment, but also room to learn from what they are doing. Professionalization means that the initiative really becomes to be seen as a serious player in the game. So they're no longer seen as just a new pilot, but they are really seen as something that can be applied on other places as well, or on a larger scale. Replicating really means that it is parts of the initiative or parts of the practices of the initiative are being replicated. And embedding means that it is being embedded in local or even larger scale practices, and that it is becoming more institutionalized. Stabilizing means that due to growing knowledge and growing success, the initiative stabilizes. So there's a more constant flow of money and resources, or even people that work on the initiative. And energizing means that the people within the initiative, they really remain active and enthusiastic about the initiative. Whereas logic of attraction means that due to the positive feel around the initiative, more money and more people are getting into the initiative. So these are the 8 propelling mechanisms. And what we do in the theoretical framework is combine them with the 9 roles in the Agents of Change framework. And the Agents of Change framework I will introduce first, and then I will show you how we combine the 2. What we did here is, this is a framework that we developed at KWR, and we did an extensive literature search on the different roles of an agent of change. And agents of change are individuals that really put in their energy and effort and time into creating and realizing a certain change that they often also find personally very important. And in the literature, we found that there are 9 different roles that an agent of change can take on, all with their own actions. And it doesn't mean that an agent of change cannot take on different roles at the same time, but it does mean that there are focuses that they can take depending on the phase of the initiative at the time and what the initiative needs. And we divide these roles into 4 domains: ID advocacy, relationships, windows of opportunity, and substantiation. And for each of these roles, there are different actions related to them. So for example, a knowledge broker really plays an important role as maintaining the institutional memory, but also developing and disseminating the different knowledge they gain. And they really are an expert, and they also play this role in establishing effective monitoring tools. And building upon this knowledge, a visionary can then create a vision and advocate for that and anticipate on changes while leading by example in that vision. Then for the relationships domain, we have a networker that is really someone that's really good at establishing connections, collaborating with people, and coordinating these collaborations and connections. While building upon that, a coalition builder looks within these networks and finds people that are like-minded, have the same ambition, and then shapes coalition based on trust and building consensus. Then within the windows of opportunity, we have a boundary spanner. It's really someone that tries to find a venue for a certain initiative or a change to land. And they do this by exploiting and recognizing and even creating windows of opportunity, which then the issue linker can use to identify potential challenges and connect these 2 different issues and solutions. And finally, in that case, a problem broker can play a role in changing the narrative so that it fits where you're trying your initiative to land, balancing between advocacy and brokerage, and really focusing on the agenda setting part. But of course, to realize any change, you really need resources, and you need to show that your initiative is feasible. So in this case, the resource broker plays an important role in dedicating time and energy, but also mobilizing power and resources. And the legitimizer really plays an important role in familiarizing and activating stakeholders and demonstrating the feasibility of an initiative and thereby reducing resistance. So these are the 9 different roles of agents of change. And we already looked at different propelling mechanisms. And what we did is we tried to link the different roles to the different propelling mechanisms. Because in literature right now, the propelling mechanisms are described as mechanisms, but the people activating these mechanisms are kind of left out still. So first we identified that there is a core team that really helps an initiative become a potential small win, and that core team needs to be active throughout all the phases of the initiative. So in this case, it's a visionary because you need the vision. It's a knowledge broker because you need to build on the knowledge, and a resource broker because you really need resources to start the initiative. And then linking the two, we get this wheel of propelling mechanisms with their according roles of agents of change. I won't walk through all of them, but I will highlight 1 or 2. So, for example, partnering really focuses on, well, as mentioned before, but as also in the name, on finding partnerships and working together with other organizations and people that share a similar ambition. And what you really need in order for that mechanism to start propelling is you need a networker and a coalition builder to find those networks and find those coalitions. But you also need a resource broker and a legitimizer to find either resources to put into the partnership or to convince people that the initiative is worth being in a partnership for. And for example, for replicating, it's really important that you're able to convey your vision very well, but also for a problem broker to be able to kind of sell your initiative so that other initiatives can maybe replicate some of the elements in it. And in that case, it's again really important that you show that it's feasible and that you really use the expertise of the legitimizer. So this is our theoretical framework. And Jan will tell you more about whether or not this also works in practice.
Yeah, thank you, Noor. I'm now taking over for the first case that we investigated. That's the Nieuwe Dokken neighborhood in Ghent in Belgium. And please note that these are very first preliminary findings that we share with you. As Noor mentioned, the goal was to identify what combinations of agent of change roles contribute to stimulating what propelling mechanisms in which project phases. Maybe first some background about the Nieuwe Dokken. The Nieuwe Dokken is a front-runner project on neighborhood scale, and the goal is to provide a high-quality, future-proof neighborhood that has a decoupled water and energy management system. It's actually a very nice location, a lot of water nearby, quite near to the city center, and you can imagine some high-rise apartment buildings that this neighborhood consists of. It goes back a couple of years, roughly 15 years. It was started because the municipality of Ghent wanted to redevelop an old industrial site and therefore started a tender procedure with very high sustainability standards. And a consortium led by Clean Energy Invest, that's the business of the agent of change that we are interviewing after the presentation. That consortium won the tender in 2011. In 2014, Ducope was founded, and that's an organization that manages the neighborhood full-time. Currently, there are roughly 2/3 of the construction is realized, and the decentral water and energy management systems are up and running. The system consists of a source separation system, mainly by vacuum toilets in the apartment, where it's possible to separate, for example, black water and grey water streams. The black water stream is enriched by residual food grinder waste and then used for biogas production on site. And the grey water is integrated with a soap factory just outside of the neighborhood that can benefit from the grey water and reuse it. I'd like to share 4 generic key lessons that we learned by interviewing agents of change in the project, but also key individuals of the surroundings, so from stakeholders such as the water utility or the municipality. And the first lesson is that Ducos really focused on spreading the knowledge by commercializing it. So there was a spin-off founded, the company Circular, and that company not so much has the goal of copy and pasting the whole integrated management system in other contexts, but basically to commercialize and sell very successful elements. Interview partners noticed, for example, an energy management system that was developed for this case and that can now be transferred to other contexts as well. And they are building up a toolkit of system elements that can be used elsewhere. And that, of course, contributes towards the spreading of the knowledge that was built up in this case. The knowledge broker has a very paramount role in this because that person builds up an organizational memory of learning outcomes and is able to transfer it towards marketable products. A second key lesson is that the initiative was very successful in navigating financial and also legal barriers. And that was by partnering at early stages with, for example, the municipalities and other important stakeholders. By that, they were able to gain exemptions from generic regulations that would otherwise hinder the uptake of the decentral management system. For example, it was not possible to organize an own piping system on site normally because the Flemish regulatory system knows an obligation to connect to the central system. But by redefining the black water stream as process water, because it was mixed with food waste, they were able to get an exemption for this generic role. But of course, they were very dependent on the goodwill of regulators in doing that. And interviewees note that the effective stakeholder involvement from the very conceptual stages in the beginning contributed to generating this political goodwill. A third lesson is that a very skillful and committed resource broker was on board in all project phases, so really from the beginning. And that resource broker was able to organize long-term financing for the initiatives. And that was mainly done by coalition building and networking. And that financing provided the basis to also stabilize and professionalize. For example, Ducos gradually grew from a core team that Noor presented in the beginning towards additional roles that were taken on board later on. As an example, serves an IT specialist who was taken on board during the process that contributed to the professionalization of Ducos and also opened the door for additional spreading initiatives. And the fourth lesson is that Ducos was very successful, or in general, more general, the agents of change in the initiatives of linking the solutions that the Nieuwe Dokken provided to local policy issues. for example, nowadays, the initiatives, energy management systems also contributes towards balancing grid demand also of neighboring neighborhoods, and that contributes to a broadening of the initiative's ambition. We also crafted an overview figure to summarize these findings, separated into a conceptual phase, the development phase, and an impact phase of the initiative. And we noticed that learning by doing, the propelling mechanism, was crucial in all phases. In the conceptual phase, partnering was very dominant, especially by the resource broker. Later on in the development phase, professionalization and stabilizing of the initiative and commercial lead Duco was crucial. And in the impact phase, embedding into the broader policy context helped towards stabilizing the initiative. We also matched these propelling mechanisms with agent of change roles. And there I would also like to underline that these agents of change roles do not have to be separate persons, but also one person can obtain different agents of change roles and also at different moments in time. The learning by doing was mainly done by the core team, and that also ensured a very a continuity in terms of persons on board. Partnering was done by the resource broker, who in that phase also took on issue linker and coalition builder roles. For the professionalizing, the resource broker became more visionary to also extrapolate a long-term perspective for the initiative, and embedding was mainly done by issue link. To make this a bit more tangible, we also added some examples, learning by doing, by the commercial spin-off circular living, professionalization by continuous growth and specialization of Duco, partnering by aligning the initiative with local policy concerns, and embedding was mainly achieved by the slow capital organized by Clean Energy Next. Our conclusions are that agents of change are very paramount in maintaining the sustainability ambition of the initiatives, and they can embrace several roles, and these roles can also change over time. A very small core team was key in this case at the Nieuwe Dokken, consisting of knowledge broker, a visionary, and the resource broker. And especially during the conceptual impact phases, networking roles were successfully integrated into this core team. We also identified four propelling mechanisms that were really key in spreading, broadening, and deepening the initiatives. Most of all, learning by doing throughout the process. That's also well documented by the knowledge broker, partnering in the conceptual phase, professionalization in the development phase, and then embedding in the impact phase that's currently ongoing. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I now give back the floor to Maria and Elisabeth. Yeah, Peter, we identified you as one of the agents of change and also emphasized the importance of such figures in driving sustainability transitions. Be honest, does this label actually fit you? And how does this role make you feel?
Yeah, when you came to me with the invitation for the interview, considering myself as an agent of change was a new concept for me, I would say. But thinking back of what happened over the last 15 years here in Ghent and Nieuwe Dokken, and looking at the theoretical framework that you have been exposing, I think I could see myself effectively as in that role. Historically, I've been involved in the environmental movement already for about 30 years. I've done directorships at WWF, at Greenpeace, so rather non-governmental organizations. And then in 2009, I felt I should do something that's more measurable in terms of impact, because NGOs have an impact, but it's very difficult to know exactly how to measure it. So I changed completely my focus, and through my network I found a number of people and institutions who are willing to give money available for an investment fund that is going to invest in renewable energy projects, partly in mature technologies, partly in innovations. And so since 2009, I've been doing this, and in 2014 we've started with let's say decentralized water treatment plant in the Nieuwe Dokken, combined with a number of energy technologies like district heating and recycling waste heat from wastewater streams, etc. And so, you explained very well, I think, the origin and the beginning of the whole project, and it's been quite a journey. And yeah, I think you could say that we acted as an agent of change, because since then we've had probably 80 to 90% of the real estate sector visiting our project here, and so that the paradigm of the very conservative, very conservative real estate sector has more or less changed a little bit, and there's more openness to talk about breakthrough changes in terms of sustainability.
Yeah. Well, in our research, we describe you as a visionary resource broker who also played key linking and networking roles in earlier phases of the project. To what extent do you recognize yourself in this description?
Resource broker, yes. Obviously, we decided very early on that although we have worked together with public utilities on the project, we wanted to do it as a private company, as a private investment company. And so, yeah, I've had to raise money from financial resources to be able to construct the whole thing. I think we've invested in total about 7 million euros in techniques, and so there's quite a lot of money which comes from private equity, from banks, from also from subsidies, and so the whole way to collect all this, you could say that's for sure resource broking. It's not only financial resources; it's also been technological resources, obviously, that we've had to go and look for. And yeah, as myself, I have a background in rather than not so much in finance. So it was quite new for me to do all this. But if you have some talent in bringing people together around the project, then it's quite possible to do that.
Okay. Well, and we've said a lot of positive things about your work, but maybe looking back on the project, where did you mess up? What did you learn from it?
Well, I think one of the points that I take from my experience here is that in a relatively small neighborhood, 400 dwellings in total, when the whole district will be constructed, you can only create that much volume in terms of cash flow generation, which means that you have limited resources to have staffing available to coordinate such a project. So I think it's wise to have at least some links with public utilities that have more historic background, more potentially more resources that they can also give available at set times when you fall short as a smaller organization. So that I think that would be one of the main lessons, that all those stakeholders that we have been in contact with at the very early stages of the project, some of them have stayed in contact with us. But I think it's important that you have the public players that are very knowledgeable in the things that we are developing here, stay in touch, and that you keep those bonds very strong so that you can fall back. You have some kind of a fallback scenario when things go sour.
Well, maybe building up on this, some anchor initiatives are led by private actors, some by public actors, some follow a hybrid model. In the Nieuwe Dokken, it largely falls under private leadership. Some would say that's a red flag for public accountability and inclusiveness. What, in your view, are the real upsides and the hidden downsides of that private setup? Where did it help, and where did it maybe also cause friction or blind spots?
Sorry. So the choice that we made to make it private, but at the same time a cooperative company, is has an advantage that we were focused right from the beginning to involve the future inhabitants and the current people who live here in the project in a rather intense way, through focus groups, through meetings, through specific topics that we work on, and where we seek advice or input from inhabitants, so that we also have a finger on the pulse of what people expect actually from a service provider in such a project. So which allows for much less standardized way of working with your target group than a public utility can do. So that would be an upside, I would say.
The downside?
The downside again is, I would think again of resources, and that you have, you can only have that few people on board in terms of payroll or technicians or whatever, with their own specialty, but you will always have issues to deal with which are outside of the scope of the know-how that you have in house.
Yeah.
So that's the downside.
Okay. Well, and I guess we have other agents of change in the audience, or maybe people who would like to become an agent of change. What can those people in Europe learn from your experiences? And maybe more importantly, what shouldn't they copy?
You've sent me that question beforehand, so I will read out a few things that I've noted as takeaways. First of all, I think for local authorities or even the European regulation institutions, I think it's important that they allow for some real life space for testing grounds, which have more flexibility than what the general regulation would allow normally. This is something that we have pleaded for here in the Flemish region. And yeah, so that's something that would be very, very helpful. So yeah, some of the public services are organized as a monopoly by a public utility. And so if there are some exceptions that could be allowed for that, when you have a clear motive that there is an added value in terms of sustainability performance, in terms of sustainability, then that is also very helpful. We've obtained that in a number of cases here in Ghent, so that's something that to look at. And then that the local authorities would stop thinking that one solution always fits all. Because our experience is now not only in the Nieuwe Dokken in Ghent, but also with the new projects that we've been in touch with, that every site or every specific project has its own opportunities because of the surrounding industries or whatever. So to allow for some more open-mindedness rather than to think that one solution fits all is also added value.
Yeah. Maybe one last question to conclude. What are the toughest and most frustrating parts of being an agent of change?
Well, I think when things go, sometimes there are some smaller technical issues that have an impact on the comfort of local inhabitants. And then you very quickly get confronted with little patients on, let's say, suffering from a learning curve. A learning curve requires that people are on board or stay on board, even if it goes sour. And though that's certainly not something that is that you can take for granted. People are very much keen on keeping their comfort in any situation. And if for some reason the toilet doesn't work or the wastewater can't be evacuated or whatever, that people have very little patience with that, and that's the most difficult point that we have been confronted with, I would say.
Well, thank you so much, Peter, for sharing your insights. And I think now there's also time for some questions from the audience.
Yes, we would like to encourage everyone to write questions either in the questions and answers place or in the chat. There is one question here from Jennifer McConville, and this is to Noor, I believe, because it came in early during your presentation, Noor. And Jennifer says, I see that networkers are only in one phase of change. Shouldn't they be involved in other phases too?
It's a very good point, and I think it relates to something I didn't mention, but is important to know about the framework, is that we don't say that the roles in the framework that we identify per mechanism are only those roles are important for that mechanism, but those are just the most important roles for that mechanism. So for partnering, networking is extremely important, and for the other mechanisms, it's also important, but other roles are just even more important, which is why we highlight those roles.
And a follow-up question from me then on this: when is it going to be published, your studies, and how?
Well, definitely there's going to be the report for the Anchor project. I don't have an exact date where I think that will be finished, but we are also hoping to publish this in a scientific article. And that would probably then be somewhere middle of 2026, end of 2026, because we still have 4 more cases to go.
And I look forward to it, both from an academic point of view and a practitioner point of view. It's important with this kind of reports and scientific literature to spread the word.
Thank you.
There is another question now from Peter Krudas, sorry for pronunciation. The Anchor project has identified 5 projects that are pioneering in alternative water and sanitation approaches. Is there a wider network or database of projects throughout Europe and elsewhere? It's a broad question for all of us and also for others listening in, I think.
Yeah, maybe I could make a start. Well, I don't know if there's an institutionalized network or database of such projects. I know that also the Anchor projects are in contact with other cases in Europe as well. And we also highlight them under the label of follow-up cases, and that not always means that they are late in time, but they use comparable and similar concepts. And I think it's very important to learn from each other and really to stay connected. because then Peter also highlighted it's not one size fits all solutions that are just readily adaptable to other contexts, but maybe some system elements are. And I think it's good to become connected, to foster collaboration, to make successful elements available elsewhere.
Yeah, and I can add, like, there are examples like in Paris, there's a neighborhood that is being converted for urine diversion, which is going to be ready sometime in 2026 if everything goes according to plan. And there's a lot of different urine diversion examples as well on like serious building scale level, and there are black water and grey water separation in many places in the Netherlands. So there's a lot of experience available, and I think many know of each other, even if there is no formal network, I would say. Anyone wants to add something? You can also write in the chat, you who are listening in.
Maybe I can add also, maybe it would be interesting to have some kind of database. The question was, is there a database? Maybe we could have something on the Anchor website with the connections that we have within the project. We also have a number of follower cities that are working with us to try to develop their own systems. So each country has a follower city. So that's also part of the Anchor project.
I have another question to Peter. What did you do to comfort the inhabitants of the Nieuwe Dokken when there would be an issue with the sanitation units / treatments?
Yes. I think communication is key here. So we have many different forms of communication with inhabitants. First of all, when people figure out there is something wrong, they can always go to a large set database of questions and answers on the website. We have newsletters every quarter, but it's a fast reaction. So, for example, there's always one of the team who's on board of the WhatsApp groups of the district, so that we actually can be communicated to through WhatsApp and answer also instantaneously. And when we have predictable issues with water treatment, like for example maintenance or whatever that needs to happen, and that will have an impact on the comfort, then you need timely communication and try to choose a time frame when few people are home to actually interrupt the services. And so those are a few tips or a few things that we take into account when dealing with missing comfort.
Thank you. I seem to be unable to see if there are questions in the chat, but
there are no questions
in the chat now.
No, nothing at the moment.
Then I can ask one. I mean, I have two questions. How is the Nieuwe Dokken experience spreading in Flanders and beyond? Do you have is it popping up in other places? And another question is how, because De Koop is an interesting organism, if you could talk a little bit more about how it is, what is De Koop and who are in it?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So De Koop is a cooperative company, which means that what we do is every inhabitant that buys a house or becomes a client of the cooperative automatically also becomes a shareholder of the company. So they get one symbolic share with a market value of €10 just to get voting right into the General Assembly of the corporation. But initially, before the project started, we constructed, there were no shareholders or no inhabitants, obviously, and there was capital needed. So the initial shareholders are all companies, funds, or institutional investors and we have 7 of them combined. So myself, my own fund, Clean Energy Invest, is the founder. There's 6 other ones that have come on board on my request. And so we brought in the capital needed, the private equity needed to be able to start the construction works of the techniques that we are now operating in the district. Out of those 7 initial shareholders, there are still today 4 of them are board members. So the board of the cooperative is still led by the initial investors. The idea is that over time, as the project will be completed and let's say the operations will be stable, that more and more the inhabitants become shareholder also financially, not only for the symbolic value of €10, but that they actually take over shares of the initial investors on the long term, so that they get more and more also a say and decisive say over the future of the cooperative. That's the idea, and especially the real estate developer, who's also one of the 7, is keen on phasing out of his shareholdership as soon as the project will be completed, which makes sense because they would like to move on with their capital to new projects. So that's how the cooperative is being set up. So when we organize general assemblies once a year in June, it will take place this year. We in general have about 30 to 40% of the inhabitants that actually show up to general assemblies, which is not bad as a representation of. But obviously, people don't need to wait for the general assembly meeting to feed information back to Ducoop, and there is a contact page on the website which is intensely used. And as I said, people also communicate quite frequently through WhatsApp. Does that answer your question, or is there something else you wanted to know?
That was good on the Ducoop, and then it was, how is the Nieuwe Dokken experience spreading in Flanders? Is it?
Well,
Yeah.
So as Jan told, so the spin-off company that is actually doing the replication, trying to implement similar projects on other sites, is called Circular. Has been founded in 2022 only, so it's a very young company, even younger than Ducoop. And so for the moment, there are about 4 other projects, most of them of one and the same real estate developer that are considering taking bits and pieces of what we are doing in the new docks to other sites. So we don't have full-scale replication of all the innovations that we've implemented in Ghent in the Nieuwe Dokken in one other site. Yeah, depending on the interest or the specific focus of the opportunities of other sites, we are proposing to implement certain aspects of it. But as you can imagine, the new docks has been able to incorporate all those innovations on one site, mainly thanks to a lot of funding from European funds or Flemish funding. So for replication, you would get very much less funding in terms of subsidies, which means that you have to be, let's say, aware of which implementations you can actually get commercially viable. And so that often has an influence on the choices that you make then for which technologies you are implementing.
Okay. It seems like we do not have more questions, so I would like to say thank you very much to Jan, Noor, and Peter for a very, very interesting seminar. I just want to end by giving you some information about the next lunch talk. It will be held on the 25th of, sorry, here I'm trying to, 25th of September. Sorry, my computer is, it doesn't want to share the last slide. Anyway, I'll do it just as it is. On the 25th of September, we'll have a lunch seminar with the topic of heat recovery from source-separated wastewater systems. All the different projects have different ways of recovering heat, and that will be explained in the next lunch seminar. So hope you will join us on the 25th of September. We'll send out a link for that as well. Thank you all for now, and thank you for participating.